All right, guys, good morning. Well, we had a tough chapter this last time, at least for Kimba. He saw Rab get hooked on the tusk of the one tusk. The one tusk had just killed the bull mammoth of another herd and is now taking over as the supreme leader of that herd. Okay, so we will continue on with chapter 7. We'll see what actually happened to Rab and can remember Kimba's down on his way. You can imagine how he feels going down to see if Rab is alive or dead or gravely injured. Okay, so let's get into it. Don't worry if my ears disappear. It's just because it's windy, that's all. It's just the wind. It makes it look like that, but rest assured my ears are fine. I can still hear and they're not disappearing. All right. Chapter 7. The pace set by the hunters was far too slow for Kimba. As soon as the cave fires came into view, he began running. He had to tell Utrecht at once, so the sorcerer would be prepared when they brought in Rab. It had been a mournful journey from the valley where the One Tusk had defeated them. 2 of their tribesmen lay dead there. They lost 2 hunters. Rab still lived, but just barely. He had leaned on the shoulders of 2 fellow hunters during the long journey back. He had lost much blood. The mighty one's tusk had gone in through his shoulder and out through his back. So in through the shoulder and then out the back. Yikes. After goring him, the mammoth had tossed Rab aside and he had gone after other hunters. Kimba had rushed down and dragged the spear maker to cover in some underbrush. The one tusk, only scratched by Rab's spear, had sounded its victory call again and led its herd away. In spite of the deaths of their 2 companions and Rab's serious injury, the hunters had taken time to hack off pieces of meat from the fallen bull mammoth, the one that the one tusk killed. Kimba had fretted and pestered them to start back, but he did not blame them. Here was meat, and the tribe needed meat. The dead could not be helped now, and the condition of one man, Rab, could not outweigh the needs of the tribe. Still, as shaken as they were, they had done their work briskly and rapidly. They ate some of the meat raw to strengthen themselves for the return march. Then each was given a large piece to carry back. Several times on the trip home, it had seemed as though Rab would have to be abandoned, but Kimba had talked to him, urging him to open his eyes, to stay on his feet. Each time, fighting hard to remain conscious, the spear maker had kept going. Now the boy ran up to the cooking fire. The women and children hurried to meet him, anxious for news of the day's hunt. They smiled when they saw the chunk of rib meat that Kimba had carried. Then they noticed the desperate look on his face, and the smiles disappeared. What was it, Kimba, his friend Tabak had said? Sorry, there's little ground squirrels kind of nipping at my leg. Okay, where was I? What is it, Kimba? His friend Tabak asked. What has happened? Utrecht, Kimba called, brushing past the questioners. The sorcerer got up from the fire. He leaned heavily on his staff, for at night the aches in his bones grew worse. Utrecht! It is Rab, the old man said quietly, not needing an explanation. He hobbled back toward the grotto where he kept his remedies. That night the clammy walls of the cave rang with sobs and laments for the 2 men who had fallen to the one tusk. The members of the tribe had eaten well at last, but this did not compensate for the loss they had suffered. Erda said nothing as she sat beside Rab, holding his hand while he tossed and moaned. Utrecht knelt beside him, changing the poultice of leaves and mud he had put on the wounds. Kimba squatted at Rab's feet. The boy's arms were clasped about his knees, and he peered unblinking into the face of the spearmaker. Utrecht's power must work, Kimba told himself. It must. Rab must live. Utrecht would know how to make him well again. Kimba placed another branch on the fire. It was his task to keep it going throughout the night, as though while the flames still flickered, so would the life of the wounded man. Narek strode over, looking from Rab to Utrecht. The power was bad, he said. A cloud covered the sun after the summoning rite, Utrecht replied. It undid the good power. Your power was good, said Narek. We found meat. He pointed at Kimba. His power is bad. His power made the One Tusk attack. His power undid the good of yours. No, Utrecht insisted. It was a cloud covering the sun, a large dark cloud. I saw it after you left. It was too late to call you back. 2 hunters lost, Narek exclaimed. And Rab? The sorcerer gently lifted the fur blanket and studied the shoulder wound. It does not go well. Ha, snorted Narek. His frown was ugly and twisted. The boy's power is bad. It will be the end of us all. Urda's face was pale and beseeching as she looked up at Utrecht. What can save Rab? She asked. Utrecht got up stiffly. He kept his back to Urda and Kimba. He fingered his beard a long while. It will not be easy. Sometimes there is nothing that can be done to keep a hunter from the final journey. But Utrecht, Kimba pleaded in a trembling whisper, there must be a way, and you would know it. The sorcerer was silent a long while. Unless, he said at length. Yes, Urda asked quickly. If anything is to save him, it would be the tip of the tusk that gored him. Only that. It must be touched to his wound. The tip of tusk, the little tip of the tusk from the one tusk. So they have to hunt the one tusk, kill it, get that tip, and then put it to Rab's shoulder, and it will save him. And that will heal him? Kimba said. Yes. Utrecht lowered her head. There is no way then, she murmured. Without the piece of tusk, Kimba said very softly, Rab will begin his final journey? I cannot say for certain. Rab may be as he is now for many days, and his fate cannot be known yet. I know only that nothing more of my power will help. But the tip of the tusk, only that would surely bring recovery. Only that. Instantly, Kimba was on his feet. The one tusk. There was hope then. He scurried over to the nearest hunter, excitedly reporting what Utrecht had said. We must go in the morning, after the one tusk. The hunter only stared at Kimba, then turned his face away. Kimba hurried to the next man. He too did not answer. Narek overheard the boy's pleas. Go after the one tusk, he shouted. After today, would you have us lose all our hunters? Is that it? We go back. We go back for more meat from the slain mighty one. Oddlag called over. It will feed the tribe for days. But the one tusk? No. Narek now shook the boy violently. You hear? We will not hunt this one tusk. This is a trick of yours. Your power is bad. You would do away with us all. He flung Kimba aside as he would a gnawed bone he was done with. Better to lose Rab than to give more hunters to the one tusk. And that sounds cruel, but at the same time you have to understand it. Or do they want to lose one man or to lose 8 men trying to save the one man? Kimba crept back to the fire. He was stunned. They would not even attempt it, not even to save Rab. He could not believe it. As the night wore on, the fire burned low, and Rab became more ashen, more still. All were asleep within the cave now, except Urda, Utrecht, and Kimba. Finally, the sorcerer too dozed off by the fire. Kimba sat cross-legged, brooding. Rab had saved his life. More, Rab was like his own father. He could not just wait day after day, sitting helplessly here or calmly painting pictures, knowing nothing was being done. Someone must try at least. Someone must go after the one tusk. Very cautiously, his hand slithered out and closed on Rab's reindeer antler knife. Utrecht had unslung it when he had first probed the wound. Kimba concealed the knife with both hands and stole away from the flames. Erda had her eyes fixed on Rab and did not notice him leave. Swiftly the boy went to his sleeping area. He hung Rab's knife around one shoulder and snatched up his own spear. What else would he need? What else would he need for what? What do you think he's doing? He pondered a moment, then picked up a handful of flints and 2 handfuls of moss to use as a fire starter. He put these in the small deerskin bag tied to his waist. Kimba recoiled at a slight sudden noise behind him. It was Tabak, and he was clutching his father's throwing stick and javelin. "I am coming," he whispered. "No," Kimba said. "Let us go now." "No," Kimba repeated. "You are too small. You are not a hunter yet." As he said it, he realized how the hunters must regard him, not a hunter yet. He had been told that often. How could he refuse Tabak in the same way they had refused him? Yet he believed that he could succeed in this mission. Did he not have the power? But he knew he had to attempt it by himself. Tabak would be of little help, and he must not let the younger boy endanger himself. Besides, he lived with Rab. Tabak did not. Nevertheless, he felt comforted that his friend was willing to take this risk. He touched Tabak on both shoulders. "You will be a hunter soon," he whispered. It was just after dawn. The lookout at the cave entrance would be brought to full attention by anyone or anything that approached, but his senses were not attuned to being alert for anyone inside who may wish to slip out. So Kimba, moving stealthily, was unseen as he left. Shortly after midday, he was a great distance from the cave. So he's breaking the rule again, but remember, Rab earlier saved him. Do you remember when Rab broke the rule in order to save Kimba? And Kimba said he resolved that he would pay back Rab, and this is how he's going to do it. Plodding along briskly, he retraced the route the hunters had followed the day before, crossing the river and traveling in a straight line toward the valley where they had last seen the one tusk. He had violated the tribe's rule again, he knew. What he was doing was inexcusable, unless he succeeded. If he did not, even Utrecht could no longer shelter him from their anger. He trotted on into a small dark forest of chestnut, black oak, and sharp-needled firs, not far from the ravine where the dog had attacked Oddlag. Kimba pushed the branches aside impatiently. There was a whisper of movement across the sodden leaves covering the earth. He ignored it. There would be birds and rodents here. It was nothing more than that. He hurried on. A branch snapped. He turned, saw nothing, and went on. But now he was running. He heard a soft swishing noise. It seemed close behind him. Kimba thought of what he had heard the hunters say. This is what they would tell him. Beware that when you are stalking something, something else is not stalking you. So if you're hunting a mighty one or something, or a deer, make sure there's not a saber-toothed tiger or a wolf or something else that's stalking you. He batted the branches aside. There was a clearing, and he raced through it. Then the trees closed in again. The sound behind him was more insistent now, the soft sighing sound of something moving rapidly through the dense underbrush. Branches slapped his face, but he did not slacken his pace. This was not a large piece of woodland, yet it seemed never to end. And then he tripped on a twisted oak root. His spear dropped from his hands, and his face met the soft, wet dirt. Squirming around, he groped for the knife. He heard a ticking, slavering sound almost on top of him. He cleared his eyes. The large red dog was there, panting hard, its tongue dripping, flat on the earth as he was. He thought the animal looked as big as a bison. Its eyes were on him again. Kimba remembered how viciously the dog had fought the saber-tooth, how it had slashed Oddlag. He swung the dagger free. He pointed it at the dog's thick, matted chest. He waited, trying not to let his hand tremble, staring as hard as the dog was. The animal did not move either. Its muscles did not tense. Its fierce muzzle gaped open, but there was no snarl. He's not snarling or growling. At last, Kimba realized that the beast was not going to spring on him. Carefully, to make no quick movements, the boy regained his feet. He kept the knife ready. Still, the dog did not stir. Kimba backed away 2 paces, 3, 4. The dog was immobile. He retrieved his spear and began walking. So did the dog, close to his side now. The boy picked up his pace, and still the dog was beside him. Uneasy, Kimba kept glancing to his right. The dog maintained its distance, seldom looking at the boy. Yet no matter how often he changed his course, it tagged along near him. After a while, he slung the knife back over his shoulder and relaxed the tight grip he had been keeping on the spear. Remember, they have not had domesticated animals animals like they would raise like chicken or goats or sheep. They didn't have any of those. And they just hunted wild animals, and they never domesticated a pet at this point. So this is a weird concept that what is this animal doing hanging around me? Okay. Well, thank you guys. It's getting a little cold here, so I'm going to start taking my hike and finishing my hike, and I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll read the next chapter. All right. Take care. Be good. Enjoy. And bye-bye.